Sorry, it's a medical thing. I have to keep my...
Yeah, Oxfam was saying it's...
Yeah,
so it takes 20,000 litres of water to make 1 kilo of cotton.
Yeah, well, cotton is the worst polluter. Now, so many brands will say it's organic cotton. Then people go, oh, I'll buy that because it's got the word organic on it. But when you actually, it's one of the seas in Kazakhstan that's been drained dry from cotton production, which means that all the fishing villages around this massive, massive sea has gone.
Yeah.
And all it is a shell, it's a desert, just to produce cheap jeans. So why do that? You know, so we don't use cotton. We don't use any cotton at all.
Okay, I'm going to ask you that again.
Yeah.
I did get that.
Are you happy?
Okay. Yes,
Right.
Yeah.
So, how would you describe the current situation in terms of sustainability in the fashion industry? It's not good news, is it?
Well, I think it's a lot of bandwagon jumping, and a lot of larger brands are being forced to actually look and examine at their policies and how they do things. Public pressure is growing, which is wonderful, and people like Extinction Rebellion that are coming on board, the political group, to actually change people's minds, are doing a great thing and saying, no, this is alarming, this is shocking, let's do something about it. So all the big brands that are profit focused have to look at ways to make profits in different ways. Now that's an enormous problem for a large industry to actually scale down, to suddenly provide sustainable products, and to look at in eco ways in which their production can really happen. If you think about it, a large organisation with thousands of employees can't change overnight. They can't suddenly become eco. So in some ways I sympathise with them, but in other ways I think, well, maybe you shouldn't be so greedy. You know, and shouldn't have grown so big. You should have thought about this planet thing a long time ago.
Yeah, because the carbon footprint of the whole supply chain is horrendous.
It's horrendous. And if things aren't local and kept as containable as possible, then it's obviously there's going to be problems. And you look at companies that are large, why aren't they planting trees to offset? I mean, we plant trees for every action that we do, and we do it in a small way. If the larger companies planted trees to offset their production, it'd be great. There'd be whole forests growing around, and you know, that's the sort of thing we need to do to actually offset their carbon footprint.
So it takes 20,000 litres of water to make 1 kilo of cotton, and yet manufacturers are still endlessly producing cotton. The effects of that are terrible, aren't they?
Yeah, the effects are terrible. And when jeans, everybody wears jeans. I'm wearing jeans that are 20 years old, so I get away with that. But wearing jeans that are new, and you go and buy jeans for £5 a pair, it's like, if that's joined into draining a lake in Kazakhstan, you don't realise that when you're buying your jeans. You just think, oh, it's only £5, I'll buy it. I'll buy 5, or I buy 10 because they're so cheap. And that's the problem, is people all around the world have piles and piles of stuff they don't wear, that they don't need to buy, and they don't equate it with the damage that it's doing in production, because there's a big sort of impasse in between that information about how it's developed and what's ending up on the high street.
It is extraordinary that the fashion and textiles industry is the second worst after oil and gas.
Yes, it is. And I think now the fashion industry is having to take responsibility for it. I mean, the British Fashion Council and fashion councils around the world often select the people that show there, the designers, on their retail ability. So you have to have 6 stockists, for example, to be approved to be on schedule at British Fashion Council. Now that means that you have to be shifting volume of sales before you start. Therefore, you're forced by a fashion council into producing. So it starts at a very early age with all designers, that if you're not producing a lot, you're not even going to be chosen as a fashion designer. What message does that put out? Because what we should be doing is aiming for quality, aiming for origins of textiles, aiming for a real sort of look at each individual fashion company and saying, they're a viable business, I will buy from them. I am wearing recycled plastic this year, not orange because it's the in colour. So all of that volume of sales that all designers are encouraged to do by fashion councils around the world, it really has to change. We want fashion designers on schedule at Fashion Week to be actually there because of their credentials and because of what they're doing and what they're meaning. That will change eventually, but machines like the British Fashion Council need to change. Machines like big industry has to change. So what we're doing is, as a smaller company, we're much more flexible. We can change.
And so how are you tackling the problem then? Because you're pioneers of sustainable fashion.
Well, 2004 started with us wanting to buy latex. We were doing latex garments and making latex wearable. And we got a grant from the Science and Technology Institute, Nesta, to actually look at ways in which latex could be more accessible to people and how we could develop latex. So we thought, hold on, where is this latex coming from? Now, we're not buying something if we don't know where it's come from. That's always been our philosophy. Where does it come from? So we flew to Malaysia to look at where this was coming from. The conditions were horrendous. The villagers that were living there were really poorly treated. Chemicals were used galore in the plantation. And the whole system wasn't sustainable and wasn't eco-friendly and wasn't ethical, more importantly. So we got some money together and we bought the village, plantation, not the actual villagers, the plantation. And we said to the villagers, let's work here, but let's educate your kids. Let's look at how you do this. Let's give you a healthcare program. Let's actually produce latex that we know is sustainable and keep you going for years without damaging the wildlife around the area from these chemicals that we're putting in to treat the bugs and things. And the villagers were up for that. It just needed someone to organise. Of course, the local rival plantation owners hate us because we're coming in and doing things the right way and shaking things up and we're foreign. So we have to deal with that. But it's making change in that way that we dive in and we impact. And that was 2004. And we thought, right, we like this because what we're getting now is liquid latex that we turn into latex sheeting to experiment with and to develop our clothing, and we know where it's come from. We feel happy, our hands aren't soiled. And we thought, right, let's look at what else we can do. And we looked at recycled plastic, and we thought, how can we solve a problem? So everything we do has to solve a problem. And we're looking at plastic that was floating then in the ocean. And we thought, this is 2005, we started looking at that. And we thought, polyester is made from plastic. Polyester is plastic. Therefore, how do we do this? And we hadn't heard of anybody else doing it before, but I'm sure other people were doing that in a very small way. Because it was just happening then where people were looking at ocean waste and river waste and thinking, you know, what are we going to do about this? It hadn't taken off then, and we were like, right, let's think of how we can tie all this together. So we produced recycled plastic from ocean waste that we then turned into T-shirts for Sight Savers, the national organisation, or the global organisation that looks at cornea implants and things in Africa. And so we thought the end product goes to charity, so we're happy. So this cycle of waste turned into textile, turned into charity benefits, we like that. So we started a circular project in 2005, which is we've used all through our processes now. And I think that sort of good feeling that comes from doing something like that just supersedes profits or whatever volume or anything like that. Who cares about that? We're doing the right thing. Now that snowballed where we'd walk around and go, there's a lot of waste here. Or why is that industry churning out all of that? Where does it go? Let's find a creative solution to a problem. So we're looking at creative solutions to global problems. We've moved on to the Riverkeeper organisation with the help of our friend Debbie Harry, who sings in Blondie. She's one of their figureheads, and she said, look, get involved in this. So we looked at the Hudson River and how it's been cleaned up in New York, and we've taken their plastic and we've turned it into T-shirts for the workers to use. And in doing that, we have to intersect with a lot of industry in America and say to them, yes, you do volume, polyester from raw materials, you're sapping the planet. Please slide in some of our recycled plastic into your production thing. Earmark it so we know where it's coming from, and we can ring fence that and just show you that actually it's the right thing to do. You won't get paid a fortune from this, but you're doing it for the good of the people and your children. Some of the factories are like, please go away. Some of the factories are like, yes, let's try this with you. So you get allied industry people all around the world that can copy this model that you're setting up and produce textiles or garments or fashion. The end product is a polyester, like any polyester, but the sources are for the right reasons. Now, people would say to us, why are you still doing plastic? Because there's not a recycling process that does it properly. Therefore, if it's getting sent to Malaysia and burnt, as it often is, by England and different countries, just shipping it off to Indonesia and to different countries, polluting the local people's life, hurting their kids, doing all the wrong things, and we're washing our hands of it and saying, well, you know, we recycled. No, you didn't. You hurt some kids in Asia. So when you're putting your bottle in the bottle bank, please take responsibility. What we're doing is intersecting that process and saying, no, you don't recycle properly as a government. We're in there showing you the way. And we don't mind shaming people. We don't mind doing that because it's the only way to change things. But at the end of the day, we are designers. So we have to keep thinking, no, we've got to make some clothes. We've got to create something. And so we'll go on a political rant, and then we'll come back and make some clothes, and we'll do all of that. And here we're sitting in a hotel called the Savoy today. And what we're doing is we're here not because we're rich, because we're not. We're sitting here because the hotel want to work on sustainability throughout all of their processes. And what we like about being here is they're thinking about it and they're doing it properly. So we've taken the plastic waste from the guests and from the staff, and we've turned it into a range of scarves that will be sold in the gift shop so that we can just have recycled scarves there. We're going to be looking at the uniforms for the hotel and making that out of their own plastic waste. Now this model can be replicated for all businesses everywhere, so that they're then taking a lot more responsibility for plastic, looking at their processes, maybe introducing recycled plastic textiles throughout the hotels, and looking at eco ways that we can do plant-based plastics, plant-based textiles in the hotel. So in this hotel room, there's so many textiles. If everyone is sustainable, then we slowly introduce a new way of working throughout the world, and it's the way to do it, really. And then I think that sort of journey that we've been on snowballs so much, because suddenly, 5-6 years ago, people went, sustainable, eco, who's doing it? Oh, they are. Yeah, we've been here for a long time.
So fast forward to today, you are a punk brand, but you now have a royal connection.
Yeah.
How did that come about?
We met Prince Charles and we were talking about plants in the UK, and we told him about our plastic processes and things. It was at an organised sort of eco designers meeting where we were chatting to him. And we were chit-chatting for quite a while, and he got a cup of tea and sort of was interested in what we were doing. And we said, well, we're developing nettles next. But we're trying to move on from the way that nettles have been done over time, because it's one of the oldest fabrics going. Like cavemen did nettle fabric. So let's look at ways that we can do that. And he just said, well, I've got tons of nettles at Highgrove. Why don't you do something with it? And we thought, well, it's not actually a bad idea, because within country estates in England, you have a mass of natural plants that often are trimmed to make things look nice, and or they're just not wanted. And throughout the country, nettles are trimmed, thrown away, and not really used. The wild nettles we leave. That's for the animals and the ecology. That's fine. But when they're on estates, or later we'll be growing it as a crop, then it's fine to cut them and use them for plant-based fabrics. So Prince Charles was very keen on looking at ways around his estate that he could do that. Now, he's been doing that for so long, way before we did. And the reason we like to work with him is he means what he says. Now, I'm not a salesman for Prince Charles. I'm a salesman for somebody doing the right thing. And when you work with this head gardener, Deb's Goodenough, who's an angel when it comes to knowing everything and doing things the right way, she's put in place systems of sustainability and eco throughout Highgrove, which are just wonderful. And we learnt so much from her and walking around the estate. And she was instrumental in guiding us on which nettles to take and which will be trimmed. Let's take those waste nettles that are going there. With the help of Oxford Brookes University students, creative students, we helped gather the nettles and process them into a new textile. So the educational component of that was quite big. So there's about 80 students working on that process. And then we farm out the production of the fabric to lots of individual workers, cottage industries if you like. And so we're actually making all these garments slowly, and locally we send them out, so we get little packages in the post, or people walk around with what they've done, and they all combine to make the garments. And that's how it used to be done. So we're kind of working with Prince Charles to look at ways that we can turn Highgrove waste into textiles. And that's an ongoing project where we'll be looking at other things in the garden, like waste sacks and plant pots and things like that. So it's an ongoing process, and it's nice to work with an estate where everything's contained. And you can look at another element and go, right, what are we doing with that? Where does that go? Let's see if we can turn that into something.
Okay, can you give me about sort of 2 minutes on the actual collection, so the other elements of the collection, what it's made of and stuff. And This is the bit that will run separately as to go with the show footage on
Right, do you want to stand up and talk you through them? Or?
No, I'll tell you what, can we get some separate shots of them afterwards? Is that all right?
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
so if you stay where you are, just,
Right.
so what kind of other elements? So you've got nettles, what other elements are you using in the collection?
Well, this collection is based around the nettle, so we'll be looking at probably about 10-12 pieces of nettle that we've developed in different ways. And we've developed a bonding process, and we've developed an eco-bleaching process, which leaves the environment undamaged. And this sort of white nettle will be coming onto the catwalk in different guises. It will be mixed with alpaca to produce a very fluffy fur-like feel, and it will be bonded in a felt-like way. And we're doing different sort of treatments for that. We're experimenting as we go, and there's 12 garments coming on 40 or so collection onto the catwalk. So about a quarter of it will be nettle. And then what we're looking at is recycled plastic from De La Rowney, the art brand, and we're taking their plastic tubes and turning it into recycled polyester. And we're producing prints like there's a bee print, which is it's got lines through it, just showing the damage that it's doing to the bee life, really. And so we're doing eco prints that will be on recycled polyester from industry to help industry understand that we can actually turn their waste into polyester. We're then looking at raw alpaca, which is from pet alpaca, and we like to work with small holdings and people that love their animals. They don't eat them, they don't treat them chemically, they treat them like their friends. And Doris is one of the alpacas that will be going down the catwalk. We've got the whole of Doris's fur so she can be cool in summer. And we like Doris because she sends us her messy fur every year of fleece, and we pick out all the dead mice and the bits and bobs of Doris's fleece, and then we put it in a river to actually wash away any debris. So it's put in cages in the local river, and there's no chemicals in it, so it's not harming anything, and it just washes out all the things we don't want to pick out, and then we keep dunking it in, and then eventually we end up with a garment that still isn't perfect in terms of, there might be bits of twigs in it, but deal with it, And then we're also we'll have some latex from our eco-sustainable plantation in Malaysia, and that has a big carbon footprint because it comes over from Malaysia. So we offset that by planting trees to actually make sure that we can do that. We're working on developing a new type of latex here from a different type of plant. So we're trying to keep everything in England as much as possible.
And you're a high-end brand, but is it possible to upscale what you're doing and make this a larger manufacturing process so you're dressing many more people?
Yes. We're starting with a small amount of nettles, just a few, we're talking probably eventually it'll be like 10, 20,000 you're dealing with. And this collection probably will have about 5,000 or something like that. That's a small amount. So what you need to do then is crop it. You need to find a crop that's treated with no chemicals. You then could produce a nettle crop and scale it up. The production process of the fabric that we're making here is a lot quicker than weaving a slow nettle dress, which is beautiful. It's a different process, but some people work in it for 6 months or a year. Now that's not really going to make an industry, and we do want to show industry, hold on, let's treat nettle fibre in this way, a bit like wool. Let's see what we can do to manipulate it in a nice way, and then let's do an eco process so we can scale this up and crop it. So then maybe there'll be a range of nettle dresses or nettle garments or nettle jackets that could come out of that, and then we can roll that out. We're working with chestnut and mushroom. Now they're a difficult process to actually scale up because chestnuts are seasonal, and chestnut trees take a while to grow, and mushrooms take a while to grow. So all of those processes are dictated by nature, which slows us down, but that's good. You adjust the price. Oh, damn. Sorry. Classic.
I was just going to say chestnut, mushroom and nettle sounds like a really nice salad. It does, doesn't it?
We should serve that. We should serve that at the party, shouldn't we? They just sent us through the canopy list. We didn't even know we were having food. I didn't see any of that on it. So where were we? What was I?
Where were we? Chestnuts and mushrooms, basically.
Yeah. So chestnuts and mushrooms are another type of plant that we're looking at. We make a leather from chestnuts that's waterproof and durable, and we compress it and we dehydrate it, and it ends up looking like leather, but that's a slow process. Mushrooms is a slow process. So when we're talking about scaling up, we've got to look at plants that we can use en masse. Now, horseradish is a wonderful, wonderful maker of textile, and it's underutilized. You could crop horseradish, and we're looking at horseradish and different ways to do it. Any plants that produce a fibre, a strong, stringy fibre, can be used in that way. And the treatments that you do with it is slightly different. So all of that can be scaled up. But we're not really about focusing on nettles and carrying that through to a massive production. We're about doing all the projects that we're doing, 40 or so projects are on the go at the moment, and it could be recycled plastic, it could be anything that we see as a problem. So we did a thing called Can to Catwalk in Birmingham, where we're working with homeless charities, and we're paying homeless people to actually collect cans for us. We paid them per can if they wanted to do it, and we then turned that can into a very sheer metal fabric that we put on the catwalk last year, which is like silk, and it's made from cans. So you feel it and you think, what is it? Is it silk? Is it metal? Is it? So all of these things came from problems where we saw lots of cans lying in parks, and we're like, no, let's solve that in a different way. So it's about looking at a problem, finding a solution.
You've dressed some amazing people, I
Yeah.
hear. Michelle Obama, Kate
Yeah.
Moss, and Debbie Harry,
Yeah.
you mentioned. Tell me about working with them.
Well, it depends very much on who the celebrity is and what they're like. Working with Prince Charles is because of his eco background, not because he's a royal. It helps, but it's because of his eco background. Working with Debbie Harry, for example, we've done really intensely because she believes in charity. She believes in saving bees. We developed a slogan called "Stop Fucking the Planet," which she wore to one of the awards and shocked everybody. And that was a few years ago. But then she wore it on tour for all of her concerts, which I think 500,000 people attended around the world. So 500,000 people are seeing this quite cryptic, in-your-face message. And it's great because she's making them think. And because she believes what she says, we actually do work with her quite a lot. And we will intensively work with a celebrity if they want us to and they believe in the cause. And we'll work occasionally with celebrities if they can get our message across and it's a compatible thing. But we're not about working with any celebrity for any reason. It's of no interest dressing somebody in the charts if that's not their ethos. Yeah.
Do you think that influencers and celebs and royalty, can have more influence? I'm thinking Meghan Markle has championed sustainable design and she's done that mad thing of wearing things twice. She shops at William Vintage, that kind of thing. Do you think people can have more of an influence and they should have more of an influence?
Well, it's amazing that royals like Meghan and Prince Charles are doing something. And they lead from a position of great sort of power, and people will copy that. It's amazing. All we can do is lead from the bottom up and try as much as we can to influence as many people as possible. And when we're doing TV documentaries, when we're working with celebrities, it does have an effect because we get the emails coming in, and mainly positive emails. There are lots of other people saying you're making money from the environment, and it's like, no. We're making money from waste nettles. It's different. We're not ripping out the countryside and trying to turn it into, we're not Topshop, we're not big brands, we're not any of those, and I think when you get influencers that mean it, people believe it. Ellie Goulding's another one that's really doing some great stuff. And I think you have to really believe that it's not tokenism. So it's great, yeah.
Where do you think the future lies in terms of fashion sustainability?
I think the future will be dictated by the state of the planet. Now, if we get all whales washing up with stomachs filled with plastic, and there's no whale left in the ocean, something will be done drastically. When a few whales wash up with plastic in their stomachs, people start thinking, oh, what can we do? That whale died because of eating plastic. It's starting to register. David Attenborough, of course, is instrumental in showing that as well. And I think that when the wildlife is impacted, people start to think, when their sons and daughters are impacted, something will be done. Now, hopefully that will happen sooner rather than later. So Extinction Rebellion that are diving in and intercepting London Fashion Week are doing a great thing. We're not part of that machine, so we're on their side. And we're on the side of anybody that intersects anything and makes people think. So fashion will be forced to do it. But if there's a global warming crisis that can be directly linked to things that people are doing, and people like Trump aren't saying, oh no, it's nothing to do with that. No. When there's a direct link, people will do something. So it may have to be that there's a crisis in the climate or a crisis in the environment that puts everybody's longevity at risk. Then something will be done. And it's a shame it takes that long.
How did you personally get started in fashion?
We really didn't get started in fashion at all. We were, I'm mainly a sculptor and a creative in that way, and Omi is a photographer, and we're creatives. But we're also kind of interested in the way creativity is marketed. I used to manage a lot of artists and try and and it's very hard to tie the two together. If you're creating something, you have to sell it sometimes, and you have to market it. So how do those two tie together? We're also fiercely political and environmentalists. So you tie all of that together. Fashion comes because we're creative, and we're genetically creative, so everything is seen as creative. And then when you've got a political slant to that, and an environmental slant, and a moral slant, and you're looking at things in a marketing way as well, the whole thing comes together. And it's all of those elements that we, not necessarily are we good at, I don't know, but they're there in us. So we're not we don't set out with a manifesto that is, we are going to do this, we're going to do that. We kind of bumble along, looking at things and doing things, and it snowballs because the zeitgeist is, it's now. And I think as fashion designers, it's a tiny element of what we do. And we will sit down and design a collection sometimes in half a day. And we'll evolve it as we go along, probably until 5 minutes before show. We'll say, don't like that piece, we should do it. And it's not like that. We don't sit down like fashion designers and focus our whole life on it and go to fashion parties and do all of that. No, we're too busy wading through mud, picking nettles and doing things like that. So fashion's part of it.
And didn't Omi work for Dior at one
Yeah,
point?
he did a lot of latex work with Dior because we started off with latex, and he's a amazing sort of craftsman with latex. So we were making different sort of latex garments with new techniques, and he was working with Dior and different fashion houses. And we still occasionally will introduce a sustainable line into their processes and work with them. But we're more and more focusing on our brand now rather than other people's brands.
Would you say you've ever had a fashion faux pas?
Well, we're talking about
Something
Vin
that
and
you-
Omi, so I'd say probably every day. We've sent things down the catwalk that only just hold out till they fall apart backstage. We've left sewing needles in things going down catwalks. We've had fashion faux pas. Yeah, because we're not focused 100% on the meticulousness. We're focused on the process. We don't have many process faux pas because we rigidly look at that. We don't have many eco-sustainable faux pas because we guard that, really guard that. When it comes to actually the fashion element of it, we'll look at something on the catwalk and go, did we do that? Did we really do that? And you'll see some feedback from people and we'll go, okay, it really shouldn't have been in that colour or whatever. But we're not focusing on that. So, and fashion faux pas are, I think most of the public would say that everything we do is a fashion faux pas. And that's fine by us.
Any personal ones?
Personal fashion faux pas are, I don't see fashion in that way. It will be down to something I've personally done wrong, like produced a print where I've left somebody's head in the print, like from a magazine accidentally or something like that, where the wrong photograph's been sent to print, and I'll look at it and I'll think, oh, that's the wrong file. And it's like, so that will come on and sometimes there's nothing you can do. So yeah, there's lots of mistakes.
Yeah. Steve was telling me earlier on about his flares and his, what was it, high-waisted?
In the
High-waisted.
70s, you said
Well,
three buttons up
The boob tube he's wearing now and the flared skirt he's wearing are amazing.
That's lovely, thank you so much.
And of course he pressed stop on that then. It's like,
Yeah,
well
exactly.
done.
Yeah.
New salad or old salad?
There's a new salad in the kitchen, yeah? If you bring that with a fork and I can eat while I'm walking there. But eat on the run.
I'm using it 2 times as well. Can I take this?
Yeah.
Riverside. Lovely. Thank you very much. Thanks. Bye.
Try and get that fluffy.
Bit of breath there.
Yeah.
As long as I.
It's about, yeah, that's fine where you are. That's just
I'm-
just your hands in.
Right,
Yeah,
okay.
you ready? I'll get you to go right in now. Do another one. Go right in closer. Maybe just pull one out.